Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Hayes alongside Harrison Simeon, and we are back for episode 18 of the Scope of SportsCast. We haven't done it really an actual episode in about 2 weeks because we've been rather busy with women's and men's basketball in Vegas, but I'm sure at least some of you guys have been keeping up with the content, the instant reactions, the previews. But yeah, no, we've both had a lot of fun over the last 2 weeks, so let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing the instant reactions first to go off of and, covering those women's and men's Pac-12 games. I know you did it with Jared and Jimmy to instant reactions for the men's tournament, which I thought was great. And I don't know if that was a real podcast episode. We haven't done one in quite a while. So there's, a decent amount to cover, at least in previewing the NCAA tournament, which starts literally tomorrow for the men's team and on Friday for the women. So I guess we could start with just our experiences in Vegas.
Yeah.
Overall, I know we touched on them when we talked for the first time, and you asking about my first impressions and being like, oh my God, there's gambling everywhere. All the slot machines, it's crazy. But no, I really enjoyed my time, and I don't maybe just asking. I know you have more experience there with going for summer league and stuff. How was your time there?
Yeah, it wasn't too. I mean, it was pretty fun. It was a little interesting. Because it was a fun group I was with, like Jared and Jimmy and Roberto, and I don't know, we all hung out and and they were out. I don't know, at least Jimmy and Jared were out. Living up Vegas. It's not really Roberto's style.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This was really fun because I'd been before for summer league twice and a basketball tournament in my sophomore year of high school. So yeah, this being my fourth time, it was definitely interesting. But probably the biggest factor was the fact that I don't know, I was with other kids my age and people that I was with instead of just my dad. So that definitely made it a lot more fun and no, it was the Media Hotel, the New York was a pretty nice hotel to stay in.
Yeah.
I haven't really stayed in a hotel that nice before, and I don't know, just everything. I mean, just going to the games, we'll get into what the games were like and whatnot. But I mean, as far as I don't know, just seeing the halftime performances, whether they were good or bad,
they were the same as ours.
But no, that stuff was fun, and even just I don't know, I've walked up the strip before, but I don't know, it's still just I don't know. I'm not sure if captivating is the right word, but
there's a lot of words you could describe Vegas by.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. It still gets me every time because I don't know. It's just unlike any other place. It feels like I don't know. Just the if the I don't know, the angel on your shoulder and the devil on your shoulder was brought to life, I feel like it would be Vegas. The Sin City nickname is right on point. So
yeah. No, I mean, I was there. I didn't do a ton of anything. I mean, I walked around in the big New York lobby with all the overpriced restaurants, and we went to the M&M store and Coke place, which was fine and stuff. Roberto's not, didn't have. I wouldn't say he's as big a fan of Vegas as I guess I was. It would be me. Well, it was both our first times there, at least at the time, because he went back after 2 days. But I thought it was cool, and I wouldn't go too many more times again. At least for without a good reason, but it was enjoyable, and it was a lot of good basketball to watch.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, yeah, you had some fun games, and the men's team obviously had some fun games,
and they went farther, so y'all were able to actually watch us in the championship instead of us having to just cheer as neutral fans.
Yeah, that is true. Although I don't know, the loss was kind of tough, but I don't know. I guess that's a good segue to, I don't know, go right into things.
Right.
But I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll start with the men's just because, they're playing tomorrow. At the point of us recording this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So I don't know. Tomorrow being the 20th on the Wednesday, they'll play at 7:10 against Boise State. But before we preview that, I guess we'll recap the Pac-12 tournament a little bit. I don't think it was too surprising to see the men's team make it to the championship. I felt like of the draws that they could have had, it was definitely the best one because not only did they get a bye, but yeah, they played two teams that I don't know. Well, I mean, we kind of talked about this, how Arizona was the only team that they hadn't beat outside of UCLA in the one game on the road. But I mean, I felt like, I don't know, Colorado had pretty handily beat Utah in the second time around, and it was a close game in the first loss to Utah, and so I don't know, Colorado had the momentum there. And then against Washington State, I didn't feel like Washington State necessarily beat Colorado that handily in the second time around. And Colorado had knocked them off shorthanded, which we had highlighted early in the year. And granted, that was kind of when Washington State was still figuring things out. We weren't sure about how good Miles Royce was going to be. But then, in the semifinals game, there wasn't a whole lot of offense. There wasn't really a whole lot of offense throughout the whole tournament for anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I felt like it was a fair matchup, and I felt like there was a lot of confidence going into that and being like, oh yeah, we've beat these guys before, we can beat them again. And it was, I don't know, yeah. And then that championship game, it was, I don't know, it's just, there was the confidence there. Obviously, winning the last eight games before then, being hot, playing probably the best basketball of the year so far, and then of course, being a championship, like, that's awesome, and then playing a team that you've beat twice. But then I think on the flip side of that, just seeing how dominant N'Faly Dante was against Arizona, because I mean, really just like no answers for Dante the whole tournament, and then just also knowing that Dante went 10 for 10 against Colorado in the loss just a few weeks ago. I think that was definitely a little daunting, especially when Shellstad and Cousinard also had pretty good games in the loss a few weeks ago, and were coming off of decent games against Arizona. I mean, the Arizona game with Oregon was something else. I'll go into that a little bit later. But I just think those things, like, kind of, stuck in the mind of these Colorado players. And I don't know, at least at the very beginning, turnovers were a factor in the semifinals game, but they were definitely a factor in that championship game. And there were multiple early, and one of them just, like, I think it was either the second or third possession of the game where Oregon was in their zone and they threw it into De Silva, and it just bounced off his hands, and it was like, are they ready? Like, it seemed like, I don't know, just the pressure was kind of there on them. And even though they'd built a run early in the first half and let it go away, and then even took the lead within the last few minutes of the game, Oregon was just seemed a little bit more composed in that championship game. But I don't know, I kind of talked a little bit, I don't know, I've talked a lot so far.
Well, yeah, you had your content from the tournament there, and like your instant reactions to it. So yeah, I mean, all I really have to add is just, I think part of the confidence that had us rolling into that championship game on such a high was the fact that Arizona lost. I mean, we talked about, like, their only real chance of winning the tournament was if someone else knocked them off for us. Mm-hmm. And Oregon was that team, but I mean, they're led by, Dana Altman is a really experienced coach, has done so much great work for the program in the postseason. And with us, I mean, it's been a little bit since we got to that point and been kind of a mainstay at the top of the conference. So when we get to that point, I mean, this core has only been there was one Pac-12 championship game we went to kind of recently, but it was only Tristan and Luke on those teams, and they didn't really play much. Yeah. So I think you have KJ there. He played the best of any of us, which is, it was a little surprising seeing Cody. I mean, he didn't really seem too in it. I mean, for, like, the majority of, like, I guess what I think was lacking was his aggression that we'd seen from his time when he would just put up 20 points a game on really good efficiency. And maybe there were points where he held on to the ball too long and wasn't able to really work within the flow of the offense as well as that five that has gotten us through the winning streak with TDS, Eddie, Hadley, Luke, and KJ. I don't know. I mean, I would have liked to see more out of Cody, but in only 17 minutes, and seeing Hadley get 38, Eddie had 30. So I don't know. It was tough. And then when you have Shellstad and Cousinard shoot a combined 9 for 30, you feel like you should be able to win that kind of game. And even with Shellstad getting the line a lot, I mean, a lot of that was towards the end of the game. I don't know. It was just more of us trying to cling to our chances of winning. But just Dante.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. I don't know if you can ever win a game when you let a guy go 12 for 12 and just completely shut down a lot of what you're trying to get inside. And that really kind of translated to us only shooting 7 for 22 from 3, I feel like. He had 9 boards and 3 steals, too, which was pretty impressive. And his just impact all over the place, being that vertical threat that Eddie really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And, Eddie's been good when he can just body in and get good position on maybe a less vertical threat. And I think maybe now that's something that we may go after this offseason. The more vertical threat at center if Eddie's, I don't know if he's out of eligibility or.
I think he has one more year.
Okay.
Because him and Hadley, even though they're both seniors, they weren't recognized on senior night. So that gives the impression that they can return.
Someone like for the women's team, Frida wasn't, even though she's a senior, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. They'll have to see about that. Addressing. I guess we'll kind of work backwards with what you said a little bit. Like starting with the vertical threat thing. First off, Bangat Dak, he had some. I mean, he's been great down the stretch of down the stretch of the regular season, but then also in this tournament. Even though he didn't play an outrageous amount of minutes, whenever he came in, I mean, he was just an energy booster right away.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, what the next few years, hopefully that he stays in Colorado, what they'll look like, because if he can get some muscle on his really skinny frame at the moment, he will I don't know, he'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with, because he is by far, I guess not by far, but he's not by far the most athletic, but he's by far the most entertaining dunker on the team.
Yeah, I mean, he's a highlight reel. And I think once he gets that coordination down a little bit more, we're working with the ball in the post, stuff like that, if he can maybe work on his playmaking out of the post a little bit, like Eddie has helped us so much with in ball movement this year, opening up opportunities for others, I think he could really fit into somewhat of a 4 or a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because I noticed, when he would come in, there was that play where he jumped up and, just shut down an entry pass trying to get it to Dante. And I thought, maybe I can keep going. But once they finally, once they had kind of adjusted off of that, Dante was able to just ward him off and out-muscle him.
Yeah, because, really, I feel like the biggest thing is his muscle just at the moment, because even though he's raw, which I'll get into in a second, he knows what his job is for the most part, and so I'm not really too worried about that. It's just the fact that compared to other big men, he just doesn't have the weight to keep up with these guys, and so he's able to get away with it with his athleticism and length, being able to swat some shots away, and still contest these shots. It's not like they're easy shooting over a guy like him, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's really his biggest flaw at the moment. And then as far as the raw thing that I talked about, he's very coordinated. His shot doesn't look bad. He took 2 threes in this tournament, but both of them were, I don't know, they don't go up the softest, even though his form doesn't look
his form
horrible.
Doesn't look bad. It was just kind of, he wasn't really in rhythm taking them. He was just saw it had all the space and was just might as well.
Might as well. So I don't know. We'll have to see, how he goes and I don't know, just what Colorado's able to do in the off season. I know Tad doesn't go to the transfer portal too often, but went to the transfer portal for Hadley 2 seasons ago, and Eddie this past off season. So I'll have to see about that, especially with Dorian Onchekwa. Hopefully that's his name. Onchekwa, yeah. Hopefully I'm saying his name correctly.
Yeah.
But especially with his decommitment, he was kind of going to be that.
Right.
That, I don't know, that big guy that we were talking about.
Yeah, I even tweeted towards the end of the game, and this is kind of a funny part. I said, put Joe Hurlburt in at this point. It's outrageous. just because I was like, we need someone that can go up with him.
Yeah.
At least put some form of resistance on Dante. Because, I mean, he's not the only center like with that archetype in the country. And it was something funny. Someone named Sanja Hurlbert, that looks to be a relative of Joe, liked the tweet. So maybe you should support seeing. Well, I mean, we thought he might have been, someone to get those minutes this year.
Yeah.
And then maybe next year if we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely thought earlier in the year with the uncertainty of Eddie and his back that we were going to see Joe a little bit more, especially with like the 5 out and him seeming to have the best shooting ability of the big men.
Yeah.
But then, not really seeing much and then not being too impressed as far as, the few garbage time minutes and then some of what we've seen in practice. But, of course, he's only, a redshirt freshman, so he has quite a bit of time to get into his rhythm. I mean, he was a 4-star coming out of high school, so, I mean, he was a 4-star for a reason.
Right.
So, we'll to see about that. But going back to what you were saying earlier about Dante, I mean, he won the most outstanding player for a reason in this tournament, and that was just because he just impacted the game in every way. Because offensively, he's just insanely strong. But with compared, I don't know, even though Umar Ballo is the best, I would say is the best center in the Pac-12, he doesn't have the same mobility that Dante does. And Oregon was able to really, go after that in that Arizona game by being able to, by just spamming the pick and roll with Cousinard and Dante, because Ballo had to come out because Cousinard is a decent shooter and can knock down the 3. But he also had to stay with Dante because Dante's a vertical threat, as we mentioned. Yeah. And so Cousinard was just able to knock down floater after floater after floater. And then, of course, when Shellstock got hot, that really just made a really tough time for Arizona to, stop them offensively. And then on offense, and we saw this in the Colorado game as well, Oregon went more of a zone. I mean, they switched their defense. They're not going to stay in the same defense the whole game. But with the offenses that Colorado and Arizona were running, I was a little surprised that they didn't go 5 out, because even though Dante is mobile, a lot of times, especially with Colorado and with Ballo being, going back to his lack of mobility, a lot of times they were staying in that short corner / dunker spot. And that just allowed Dante to just kind of be able to freely roam because, yeah, he has long arms. He was able to tip passes. He's athletic. He was able to block shots and contest shots. And I don't know, I felt like Colorado's offense kind of was stagnant even against Washington State because of their spacing and having their big men, whether it was Eddie or Bangot or just open his few minutes in that short corner, because then it just allowed those bigs to help over and really take away any drives, which then limited the outside production. And especially when the outside shots that were open weren't falling, it just made Colorado's offense that has been pretty consistent all year really just kind of fall off a cliff in this tournament.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, it was obviously a little bit with Colorado's offense, I feel like, as far as their struggles there, but I mean, just Dante was just too much to overcome because he was just, I don't know, with Eddie, he was just a little bit quicker, could jump a little bit higher, kind of get to his spots. Even when they're setting doubles, he was mobile and able to get around. And I don't know, just when a guy is that important to a team and is bringing so much attention, it creates so much more for the other talented players.
Yeah.
And even though we didn't really see it that much with Shellstad and Cousinard, like they still hit some big shots here and there, made some decent plays. Like Cousinard had 8 assists. And you even look at guys like Jadrian Tracy, who I hadn't really been impressed with him that much this year, but he hit one of Oregon's 2 threes on the game, which is kind of crazy. I can't believe they won with only hitting 2 of 17.
I completely, I knew they weren't shooting well, but I didn't know they only made 2.
Yeah, I think it was only 2 or 3, but yeah, no, Jadrian Tracy hit one of them, and then he also, well, I think when in one of the possessions after Colorado had went up on the Luke O'Brien 3 in the last 5 minutes, he had went underneath baseline with a sweet reverse layup, and it was just like, dang, like, obviously these guys are good, they're D1 for a reason, but when you haven't really seen plays out of guys like that, even in this game, like really, like like you said, like Tracy only had 6 points. But when they come up in big moments like that, that just makes it a little bit harder. So yeah. I mean, that was just really the toughest thing as far as, just Dante and then just the rest of the Oregon team kind of just showing up.
It was a gut-wrenching kind of loss because you had all of that momentum building that point. You thought finally we could, have some form of success. I mean, since we've been here, that would be the most tangible thing.
Yeah.
Even just getting the championship would be. And the fact that, we made that run, are in the tournament now, still bodes really well. I feel like it was more a testament to how good Oregon has played in this tournament. I mean, knocking off Arizona is one of the most impressive wins on their whole season. So I think for us, it's kind of just a game you have to move past, even though you found a lot of things that maybe you need to work on with like the vertical threat, and then maybe there were some points where the game got tense and there were some dumb turnovers. Like I know KJ played a great game, but he had some full court passes that were just kind of uncalled for in the moment. You kind of had to just
and somewhat uncharacteristic for
sure.
Would I say they were uncharacteristic a year ago? No. But this year, 100%.
Yeah, KJ's been so much more safe with the ball lately, and that's what's made him so efficient and so just unstoppable. And like the fact that people are like, oh yeah, he's an All-American snub, he should have been Pac-12 Player of the Year. Like, I don't know if I would have pictured him being in those talks at this point last year or the year before.
Yeah.
But I mean, he played 39 minutes. Maybe there was some fatigue there. We saw him go to the bench, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That never happens nowadays with Hammond being out for a while. And now Hammond is doubtful for that Boise State game, so we could probably see another 40-minute KJ game.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, those were uncharacteristic, and I feel like moving now, getting that little bit of rest before the first 4 game, which I would have preferred not to have with how much all the guys have played, especially against a team that arguably shouldn't have been in the first 4 in Boise State.
Yeah.
I feel like they were an 8 or a 9 as they were last year, just because I think maybe they prioritized I think they got first rounded in the Mountain West tournament. But just moving, I guess we could segue into that if you want.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to highlight on, just real quick, going back to the tournament, is just that I know I keep talking about Oregon, which is obviously a sore subject, but the funniest thing was that their hardest game was their first game against UCLA, and that was because of Adam Bona, who I feel like is the best matchup for Dante, as far as, because even though, like I said, Ballo is so dominant because he's so strong and has decent athleticism, but he's just not as mobile as I mentioned earlier.
Right. Bona's a high flyer.
Yeah, Bona, he can move and he's energetic. He can fly, and I feel like he definitely rivals Dante the best. And I don't know, both those guys are really fun to watch. They both, I mean, obviously, like, everyone on the court is taking it serious, but they're gonna scream, they're gonna be happy, and not only that, they're gonna, they're dancing, they're happy. Like, Dante had an M1 dunk, and he started like going like that.
No, Dante was fun to watch, even though I was so like disheartened by how he was doing this. Like, that's a player I can picture in the NBA in a couple of years. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, it would have to be this year because he's a 5th year.
Oh.
But which, I don't know, is even more of a testament to Bona, who's only a sophomore.
Yeah, true.
But I don't know. I just wanted to highlight that just because of how good Bona was and how he was able to rival Dante a little bit. That made that game really close, and it was the matter of a missed floater at the buzzer of Oregon being Pac-12 champions or not, which is just a crazy thing to think about. Especially when, as we've mentioned, like, the offense was so horrible across like pretty much all the games. And I mean, UCLA, like, their offense was just so pitiful down the stretch, and they just couldn't hit any threes. Yeah. And it was just like, wow, like, if you just
it was more like, I guess, more a testament to like how UCLA's had a down year. I mean, they've had Bono, but other than that, they haven't really had a characteristic UCLA season that we usually see them in,
Yeah, I mean,
deep in the tournament.
Yeah, and like when Colorado lost them, like, that was amid like this weird, like, I don't know, like 5-game win streak. And besides that, they've been pretty off. And like I don't know, Sebastian Mack has been good for them. Has been in Pac-12
Mhm.
of the player. Have been in Pac-12 freshman of the year talks. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, and he was decent, but it was more Dylan Andrews down the stretch for UCLA. But yeah. Anyway, moving ahead to Boise State. Haven't seen too much of Boise. Don't watch as much Mountain West basketball. But obviously the conference has been pretty good this year. I mean,
they have 7 teams in the tournament, or it's either 6 or 7, something like that. So
yeah, I forget which exactly, but I mean, in the one game that Colorado saw against Colorado State, Colorado took an L. And so if that's the caliber of a team that Colorado face, it's not a game that's a for sure loss, but it's not one that will be easy by any means.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely think the most interesting thing about it, or I guess the two biggest things I want to bring up is one is just I can't believe that they posted the reaction of the Boise State players to
that was
like
that was very. I mean, that was like when Michigan found out they would be playing Alabama in the playoff. Remember that?
yeah.
Like, to be fair, Michigan ended up winning, but just the fact that they seem so disheartened by it.
Yeah, I mean,
It makes me a little nervous, to be honest.
Like, yeah, I feel like it could either be two things. Like, it's either like, oh my god, I can't believe we're here, and I don't know. Then they're nervous about the game and trying to win. Like, obviously they're gonna be nervous, but I don't know. Either feeling like there's more pressure on them, or they have the complete opposite side. And they're like, we should not be a play-in team, and I don't know, come in with that chip on their shoulder.
Right.
Especially when you look at that Colorado video and they're just excited to be in.
Right. You saw Luke. He was like so relieved.
Yeah, I mean, I would be as a senior, especially with some of the luck that Colorado's had. I mean, when Pac-12, when Tad Boyle talked at the Pac-12 tournament after the championship loss, like he was, and got asked about whether or not they'd make the tournament. I mean, he talked about I've had teams who I've had miss the tournament who I thought should have made it, and admittedly, I've had teams who have made the tournament who I thought weren't, didn't necessarily deserve it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I mean, Luke's reaction was deserved, but I don't know. Those two things, I mean, they definitely create some I don't know, some general assumptions, like I don't know, just about the game, or at least kind of stir things up a little bit.
Yeah, you would have to imagine Boise State goes in there pretty motivated. Because, I mean, to be underseeded, I feel like a lot of Mountain West teams were. I think I counted 6 just now. I mean, the fact that they got that many teams in the tournament, but also all of them being kind of lower seeds. Like, I thought Utah State should have been a higher seed. Nevada. Who else? I thought CSU being the literal last team in was kind of
I
shocking.
thought they were gonna miss it for a second there. I was like, no way. But then I don't know. Another thing that like I was just like thinking about was that the winner of this game, like Florida's a good team, but they just lost their big man on a I don't know. I don't know if you saw the injury, but
I didn't see the exact injury, but I know he's hurt.
It was gross. I don't know if they've announced the specific injury yet, but like you
It's
could
pretty much a guarantee that he won't play.
Yeah, you could hear a snap when bro went down, and it was not good at all. Just nasty.
Didn't they win the SEC championship, or what am I?
They lost to Auburn.
Auburn,
and it was a close game through the first half and into a little bit of the second half, but then Auburn ultimately just pulled away. But with that, I mean, obviously starting big man is crucial for any team.
Yeah.
And so to see him go down, like, I don't know. Yeah, like I'm wishing the best for him, but with injuries in sports, they mean stuff. I don't know, teams, you're not hoping for an injury, but whenever an injury is there, you have to, I don't know, teams are going to think about that. And so both Colorado and Boise State, like, they want to win, like, I don't know, they want to win it all. That's the motive isn't going to change. But I do think there's a little bit of that. This Florida team is definitely beatable after this injury specifically. and I think that that could help raise the, I don't know, even just raise the emotions and the atmosphere of that game, and I think that would be one thing to kind of look out for, just because I don't know, it's not a surefire thing that either of those teams would beat Florida,
Right.
depending on who makes it, but given the fact that Florida seems a lot more beatable than some of the other teams they could have been facing,
Yeah.
I think that would be a big impact on this game.
I think for Colorado to win, it may come down to Eddie, just in the fact of who he's matched up against, because we saw how well he was able to thrive and just all the impact he was able to make against Utah and Washington State in the Pac-12 tournament, and just overall this season how he provides so much energy, and how there's a lot of X factors in the team, but Eddie, in terms of the just ball movement that he brings, if he can, I guess, get a little serious and sometimes some of the silly mistakes he'll make, I think we'll be just fine against Florida. And I know the SEC has had a little bit of a down year in terms of their usual. Like, I know Alabama's still pretty good, Auburn, Kentucky, and South Carolina too. So, we'll see. I know Florida's on a hot streak. Both of us being teams that went to the Pac-12 or conference championships that weren't maybe the most expected, and then ended up losing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with Boise State in particular, there was one player I keep hearing the name of, in Tyson Degenhart.
Yeah, he's averaging 17 points a game, along with 6 rebounds, not only 1.5 assists. But I don't know, anybody who's scoring that much at the D1 level is, and I don't know, a conference that we've highlighted has been pretty good this year. They're going to be special. So yeah, no, definitely something to watch out for, especially at 6'7". I feel like, KJ Simpson and Javon Hadley and Cody Williams have had a good time taking care of the talented guards that Colorado's faced off with. But as we've seen, the taller the better player is, the harder time that Colorado has with them. So I don't know, it'll be interesting. I'd imagine that either Hadley or Tristan guards him. But you look at, right behind him with 13.6 points a game and averaging 5 rebounds is Chibuzo Agbo, who's also 6'7".
Yeah.
So Colorado will have a handful inside in the interior, especially because I don't know, Boise State doesn't take too many threes. They seem to pound it inside.
And then that's where we struggled again. We lost to Oregon just by giving up just 2 threes.
Yeah.
So you're really going to have to, I think the difference is going to be made in the front court.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether we can deal with their guards too. There's Max Rice, I've seen, averages, I think, 12 a game. And, I don't know if that is entirely like moving the needle, but they have scorers. They have 4 really good scorers, and I wouldn't say they're an incredibly efficient team, but at least from 2 they have looks like 4 guys that are in the rotation that shoot over 47%. So that'll definitely be something to look out for.
Yeah. I think one thing that is kind of, odd about this team, though, is that, we keep highlighting that they pound it inside. We look at their rebounding numbers. For as far as how they rebound, not horribly high. Only 86th in the nation at 37.2 rebounds per game. But then you look at how many rebounds they hold their opponents to, and that's under 30 rebounds a game, which is 6th in the nation. They limit offensive rebounds. They're 2nd in the nation as far as that. In the conference, they were by far and away the best rebounding team as far as, limiting the opposition.
Yeah, I mean,
And so-
overall, we talked about how good they've been. They were tied for second in the regular season in the Mountain West.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this team is definitely – they do things that Colorado has a hard time dealing with. But it's funny because you look at this roster and they don't have anyone over 6'9" besides Mohamed Silva. He's the only listed senior, and he only averages a point a game.
Yeah.
So it will be – I just think this Boise team is just, I don't know, kind of I don't know. I wish I was able to see them more throughout the year.
Yeah, same.
But I don't know. They seem to be set up in an odd fashion. So I don't know. I wonder. I don't know. I think it's really kind of a toss-up in this game.
They've only played one Pac-12 team this year, and it was Wazoo. They lost by 5. And, I mean, their non-conference looks okay. Nothing crazy. They didn't play any super elite teams. They played Clemson. Lost that one pretty handily. But, I think with this game, I like our chances, but simultaneously, sometimes the teams that limit the rebounds the best are also teams that are really good in the tournament.
Yeah.
That they can just wear a team out, control the tempo, and not limit transition opportunities.
Yeah, because I feel like...
And when the game gets slowed down for us, that's when, we talk about our offense getting stagnant. And, maybe some of the half-court stuff that I watched in the Pac-12 tourney didn't look very good.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to need to kind of negate the rebounding sort of thing, like and grab a lot of boards. And Eddie, I think, will play a big part in that. Hadley, Cody,
Tristan.
Yeah, Tristan, yeah. So I don't know. I feel good, but I'm also there's definitely some things that convince me that okay, this is a team that was probably underseeded, feels a little disrespected. Can slow the game down. And, they beat St. Mary's. My bad. I didn't even notice that on their non-conference. They beat a team that's a 5 seed in the tournament.
Yeah.
So.
and I don't know, there's not too many opponents that Colorado, are mutual opponents between them and Colorado, but they've beat Colorado State and they've lost to Colorado State. So, I don't know. Take with that what you will. But I don't know. I feel like generally in March Madness, teams that are the more disciplined team seems to go a little bit further. And so far, Colorado's main issues, outside of a little bit of the interior that we've talked about so far, their main issues have been turnovers. And, I mean, we've talked about the interior, but, you look at that championship game, they got Oregon into foul trouble early. They got into Fale Dante with 2 fouls early. They were in the bonus within the first 8 minutes of the half, and Oregon finished the half with 7 fouls. Colorado out-fouled them across the rest of the in the entire game, and Eddie Lampkin ended up being the one that was in foul trouble in the second half, picking up 2 fouls within the first 5 minutes, and which is why we had to see so much bang got Dak. And so when those things are issues for Colorado, and then we look at the rebounding, we look at the turnovers, don't seem to be too horrible of a problem for this Boise State team. It's I don't know. It definitely is a little nerve-wracking because not only is this Boise team seem to be more disciplined and kind of, I don't know,
methodical.
Yeah, more. I guess methodical. But you look and 61%, at least according to Pro References, 61% of the roster returned from last year, which was a March Madness team, even though they lost in the first round, as you mentioned.
Okay.
And so to see that, that's something. And they had 23 games with their with their starters healthy. So it's, I don't know. I feel like they do have the upper hand, not only as far as seeding and the the chip on their shoulder, but also just the discipline, the kind of even though I feel like this, I feel like Colorado, they have good chemistry, but they just haven't had that time playing together. And I feel like that's part of the reason why, Cody Williams wasn't as big in this Pac-12 tournament. Because also, you don't want to rush him back. I'm sure there's probably some NBA things, going on with that. But I don't know, when a guy hasn't been able to play with a team that's been on fire since he's been out, it's like, I don't know. That's definitely a little off-putting. And I don't know. I think this Boise State team, as far as the, I don't know. Yeah, as far as the, I don't want to say like the unteachable qualities, but I don't know, just some of the, just a lot of those qualities I feel like matter when it comes to postseason high pressure basketball. They kind of have Colorado beat in those aspects. So I don't know. I do agree that I feel decent. That Colorado can beat this team. I feel like, with how much talent this Colorado team has, they can, hang around with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this, it'll be a high pressure game tomorrow. Obviously, it's March, so all these games always are. But given all the things you've mentioned, it'll definitely be a tough battle. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And then last thing I'll add is a win on Wednesday is such a big momentum boost into that first round game. And you see a lot of first four teams sort of go on runs. I remember UCLA was an 11 seed, and they made the Elite Eight as one of the first four teams.
Yeah.
So that can be a little momentum boost, especially against a team in that kind of environment. And we go Florida, and then most likely a Marquette. I don't know. I've talked about my upset predictions a little bit with you beforehand, and I have a sneaking suspicion about Western Kentucky, but I think Marquette will win that game. So we get to the 32 and we play a 2 seed Marquette, then we can, I guess, get back to that later.
Yeah, no, we'll get to it. If it happens.
I don't know if you wanted to do a pod during spring break, but maybe.
I mean, I'd be down, I'm sure.
Ahead of the Sweet 16, if we're in it, for women's at least.
Maybe. I'd have to take a look, because I know we were, talking about for like the men's tournament, if like they got like the either Nebraska or the Salt Lake City draw for the opening round. Like we were talking about, road trip out there, all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. But one last thing that I wanted to add. I know we just keep adding one last thing, but with the continuity though, I will say that this has been the longest stretch that Colorado has had with like kind of like a set lineup. Sure, they haven't been healthy with Julian Hammond and Cody Williams being out, but as far as a top like 6 guys, top 5-6 guys, they've been playing really well basketball. They won an 8-game win streak for a reason. They made the championship game for a reason. They only lost that championship game by a matter of a few possessions. So I do think that as much as I highlighted those things that favor Boise State, some of these issues that we did see arise in the Pac-12 tournament that were more prevalent across the whole year did start to kind of, I don't know, they've been going away a little bit more. So
I can see it. I mean, there's a reason we've been playing, like, we've won all these games in a row. We've found ways to win, sort of different ways, like winning a complete rock fight against Wazoo and then a little bit more of a fast-paced game against Utah. So
yeah, I
don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm excited. I love March, especially when both of our teams are in it.
Exactly. It makes a whole lot of fun. I feel like, I don't know, like, obviously, as a Colorado, student / fan / journalist, like, I don't know, you're like, Colorado State, nah. But to see Colorado State and some of these Mountain West teams like in the dance, whether it's a play-in game, it's like,
it's been a nice year for
cool.
For the teams out here, and I think Northern Colorado damn near won their conference and made the tournament too. But I think it's been a pretty good year for schools out west, even though a lot of them are underseeded. I mean, a lot of them are in it, and it was 7 teams. I don't know why I said 6. I missed UNLV.
But yeah. Okay, I think we're at one last things though for men's basketball. So let's end the women's basketball. We've gone kind of long, but I want to give some good coverage.
There's not a ton besides hoops that we really need to go over.
Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, let's get into it.
So, yeah, the women's team, they'll play Drake in their opening round matchup, just missing out on a hosting spot, which I was bummed about because I kind of predicted I was literally going to do a buff banner on our show that was snowed out last week about our chances of getting that hosting position, and we were literally about a spot away. I would imagine we're the best, or at least highly thought of any 5 seed in the tournament over Oklahoma. The other ones were Utah and Baylor. So, I mean, maybe Baylor's, take your pick with that. But either way, we played Drake, and out of the 4 12 seeds, actually 5, considering one of them's a first 4 game with Columbia and Vanderbilt, Drake is the best one, for sure. And they're going to be a really tough matchup, a tough draw that I didn't know a lot about until that happened. And it seemed like some of the team didn't either when JR was asked about how much they kept up with Drake. She didn't really say she knew much. She knows they have a tremendous point guard, and that is correct because Kate Dinnebeyer, you're going to learn her name on Friday because she was one of the 5 finalists for the Mid-Major Player of the Year award and is just elite in a lot of aspects. I mean, she was on all defensive team with 2.5 steals a game. She averages about 7 assists a game, 18 points on 50, 40, 85 splits. So extremely efficient, capable defender and ball distributor. And they have, it's not just that. They have another player that averages 17 a game in Grace Berg and a player that averages double-digit rebounds in Anna Miller, who essentially gave the Bulldogs the tournament.
Yeah.
With the fact that they've been one of the best mid-majors in the country. They won their Missouri Valley Conference by a decent bit and, looked really good and looked like a shoo-in, but we're down by a point with 2 seconds left in the tournament, in their conference tournament. And it's kind of shows a little bit of an issue with, I guess, the sport in general if a team isn't going to make the tournament just because they're in a mid-major, even though, as I was about to get to, they are 9th in the entire country in points a game. They're 7th in efficiency. They're 2nd in 2-point efficiency. 23rd in offensive rating, which is all ahead of us, even though we've had such a good offensive year. They have a lot of talent, and they're really well coached. They're one of the best mid-majors and programs in recent history in the country. So tough test out the gate in Manhattan, Kansas, not New York, but Kansas, where we would play either Kansas State or Portland after that if we were able to pick up the win, which I think we will. It'll be a tough game because I would imagine it turns into a little bit of a shootout, and that's when I get nervous, when we're in a shootout if we get cold, because if Frida isn't hitting, if Nettie can't get too good of post position, I know they're a smaller team. They're not anything special defensively. They, have some, they're a pretty good rebounding team, but defensively they're not anything special. But they've had a tough, they've had some tests early on against non-conference teams. I mean, they got blown out by Iowa, but I don't know if you can really blame them for that. But they beat Iowa State, and they've had some tough games against Minnesota and Creighton as well. So they're going to be a team that pushes the pace a lot. They're going to be a team that shoots a decent amount of threes. They're nothing crazy from 3, but they can shoot it well for a mid-major. And they're actually one of the best in defensive rebounds and blocks a game. So really tough pick, really tough draw if you're the Buffs, and a tough break because if you're that 4 and playing Portland, they're a team that was just a bid stealer. I mean, they're pretty good, but they're not anything like that as worrying as a Drake would be. So you're going to need you're going to need pace. You're going to need to play with pace, move the ball around really well. We can see a lot of Jalen in transition, hopefully. But because they're efficient, that can limit our pace because it can turn us into more of a half-court offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes me even more worried. And even though I'm picking us, it would not be shocking at all if we actually lost because of the fact that we have some issues that were exposed in this last little stretch of games, in defending the 3-point line, in I would say just we've picked up our ball movement a bit, but still that's something that comes up for stretches of games where it's like, okay, they're just kind of playing hero ball or pick and roll, and whoever has the ball is going to shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It'll be a good test, and then you get past it. You play, if you assumedly Kansas State. That's a game I honestly feel a little better about, even though Kansas State's been such a good story and a really good team this year. I like us better in that position just because of our size. And I think our size can help us against Drake too. It's just going to come down to, can we limit their 2-point efficiency and make them into, or at least keep up with them in transition. But I think overall, I sort of like where we're at, and I feel like maybe the 5 seed could be a blessing in disguise just because we like to play underestimated.
Yeah, no, this team definitely likes to play under pressure. I mean, you highlighted that in your preview. So I do think that kind of works for Colorado. And I don't know, I feel like there's a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, but like, obviously you want to be the highest seed you can be, right? But Colorado knows that they have been on a really bad stretch. And I think they, I don't know, feel that this 5 seed is more than deserved as far as dropping out of this, from being a host. And so I do think that like having that realistic, expectation, especially that like J.R. Payne, highlighted after the seeding was revealed, I think, that does, I don't know, knowing where they are and knowing what they've done and knowing what they need to do is really helpful for this team. I feel like it would be, I don't know, almost a disservice if they're ranked a little bit higher, just because it might give them a sense of false confidence. So I don't know. Yeah, I could kind of agree with that. That blessing in disguise, 5 seed. But I don't know. Yeah, as you've mentioned, like as you highlighted this, pretty much across the whole, I don't know what to even call it. Not like spiel, but whatever. What you highlighted was that this Drake team is good. You look at the things that stand out to me. This is a team that has returned almost 73% of their roster from last year, which isn't, which is surprisingly isn't as good as Colorado, but it's another team that has played together, put together a decent core, and you look at their top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, and they're all upperclassmen. They have 2 underclassmen that are in the rotation, and that's 7th, 8th off the bench. So I feel like that's going to be a hard thing because this team has played together, and they've across the last 3 years they're back-to-back conference tournament champions.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this. All of their starters have started every game. They've had the same starting lineup the entire year, and they've been healthy. They've played all of, I think it's 7 or 8 of their players. Yes, 7 or 8 have played all 34 games for them this season, and they've just had a lot of continuity, like we've said before, like with Boise State or like with us. And, we've been a relatively healthy team this year, too, barring a Sarah Rose-Smith concussion. So I think it'll be a battle of really experienced teams a battle between if we can have sort of a vintage defensive performance, because we dropped like 70 spots in defensive rating this year. That was really worrying for me.
Yeah.
Now, it's only by about 3 points a game, so it's not like, oh, we're giving up so many more points a game than last year. But I think you've seen the loss of Tayana Jones a little bit more with a player like Maddie Nolan, who isn't really accustomed to playing defense, Tamia Sadler, who's smaller frame. Quay Miller's had to guard more in the perimeter with a lot of teams going with one big lineups, and that's killed us. One big lineups, and looking at how they play, I mean, Anna Miller appears to be their only rotation player above 6 foot tall. So they're not a huge team, but they play one big, and they're going to play really fast. So it's going to be on Quay and Nettie to keep up with that. So
yeah. Especially because they move the ball well. I mean, 20 assists per game.
Yeah.
Third in the nation. I mean, that's stuff that's hard to deal with. And you look at, their head coach that you talked about, Allison Pullman. Only been there, 3 years. Only seems to have 3 years as a coach, but 71 and 29 in those 3 seasons, including this one, as well as like I just said, back to back conference champions. At least in the tournament, they were the regular season champion as well this year. In that conference,
they lost only one conference game the whole season.
Yeah, so I mean, those things are definitely worrying for this Colorado team, as we brought up. But I will say that, as much as, we've talked about teams, the conference of which teams are in and how that may impact and how that impacts a team seeding, whether or not that underseeds them or overseeds them or whatever it may be. I do think that, Colorado we've highlighted the strengths of schedule all year for Colorado. I forget exactly what they rank among, everyone across the nation.
I think either 15th.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty dang good. I mean, you look at Drake, and I mean, no offense to these mid-major schools, but I mean, there's a reason that this team that went 29-5, 19-1 in their conference won run the conference championship. They're the only one that was able to make it out of this conference. When they're playing, Northern Iowa, Missouri State, Murray State, Illinois State, Bradley, like those teams, like obviously, mid-majors, they deserve the respect, but they're not USC, UCLA, Oregon State, Stanford, Utah.
I mean, a lot of the teams that were ahead of us in strength of schedule were just other Pac-12 teams.
Yeah. And so it's like, I don't know. I feel like that may, just in that factor, that may just be the overwhelming difference between these two teams. Just because, I mean, Colorado, they're used to the big games. They're used to, high pressure situations going back to last year as well. And I don't know, then you look at this conference, at this conference tournament that Drake won. They won their first game handily, but their semifinals, they had to go to OT. And, they were able to win by 9, but they had to go to OT against Northern Iowa, which is, a team that played them close twice this year, losing by 2 and 8 in the two games they lost to them.
Yeah.
You look at and then you look at the championship game, which they had to win at the buzzer against Missouri State, who also played decently against Drake this year. And so I think with those things and the strength of the schedule for Colorado just being so heavily outweighing the teams that Drake has faced this year, and then also seeing the struggles that Drake has had, even though their conference doesn't, or their record doesn't reflect that. They've had close games. I mean, not every game is going to be a blowout when you're a good team, but when the last two have been nail biters, and there's been a lot of close games throughout the season against these teams that aren't as good as the teams that have Colorado played, I feel like that'll play a big factor, at least as far as the confidence for Colorado. And we haven't seen, as we mentioned, haven't seen much, if any, of this Drake team, but you can only imagine that that there's a I don't know, there's some emotions about it. There's some mental, some mental things going on for both teams.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say we've never been a team to really play down to our competition often. I mean, there were a few games this year in non-conference where maybe we started a bit that way, but we've always been able to overcome it. Against like BU, we were down late in the third quarter and they went on that insane run. Northern Colorado, they got off to a crazy start. But with a tournament like this, I mean, last year we were projected to be, upset pick, Middle Tennessee over Colorado. I mean, that was when we were 6 seeds, so maybe a little more vulnerable. But, I mean, we're arguably the highest rated 5th seed in the country. We're a team that's been through a lot of battles, and all of those losses in the recent stretch were all close. Came down to the wire. So, I mean, we may have become a little bit of a victim of our schedule with how fast we play. Kind of gotten worn down a little bit. And something I will say, though, our regional, if we're going to really, really, really make a run, like Elite 8 or better, is an absolute gauntlet.
Yeah.
LSU is the 3, UCLA is the 2, and Iowa is the 1. Those are 3 teams that could all win the national title. And Louisville's really good. Actually, I made my women's bracket. I predicted them to get upset. But UNLV is really good. They won the Mountain West. Creighton was another team ranked pretty much all year. They're a 7. Like, this is... And West Virginia, they were ranked for part of this year. They're the 8. And Princeton, too. Mm-hmm. Like, this is by far the best regional of any in the tournament. And it's giving Iowa a really tough test at the top. I mean, if we end up getting to that rematch... Now, I would say Iowa is honestly a little bit better than they were last year in terms of offense. But we saw last year what happens when our offense gets clicking. And this year, too, playing a team like LSU, which who knows if we somehow beat Iowa, we could face in the Elite 8. There's a lot of history with a lot of storylines that could play out.
Yeah.
When Kansas State even... that being kind of a Big 12 preview for next year.
Yeah, and I don't know. That definitely does make me think. Like, I don't know how much does the committee. I don't know how much do these matchups and
I think they know what they're doing.
Play into committee's decisions because
they know they 1,000% know what they're doing because Louisville would play LSU if both higher seeds win. Haley Van Lith went to Louisville. Yeah. Chance for LSU and Iowa to meet again.
Colorado, Iowa.
Even random ones like South Carolina could play North Carolina in their second round, so maybe giving them a test.
And it's funny, just listening to that regional though, just because they're almost all like the teams that Iowa had to play down the stretch of last March Madness. So
no, and there are random ones that maybe they didn't exactly know, like. If Iowa State and Duke meet, Celeste Taylor's one of the best players in Ohio State, transferred from Duke last year. And there are so many teams that I could think could win. Because as good as South Carolina is, the field this year has been so loaded with talent that even a team like Utah down at a 5 seed, Tennessee as a 6, NC State as a 3. I mean, I was shocked that Notre Dame jumped to a 2, but I mean they could be a title winner. Even like a Baylor at a 5 seed, they've been really solid this year. UConn and Duke again. There's so much amazing, just all around talent this year that. Even though I feel like South Carolina has one of the easier regionals, they still got to go through probably either Notre Dame or Oregon State. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a fun tournament. The men's is even more hard to predict for me.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, this year is just like the complete opposite. Because obviously there's the men's, I don't know, every year both team of basketball, it's always going to be talented. But I feel like it's in terms of I don't know.
Outside influence is crazy this year. I I should not. I deleted TikTok for like 3 weeks. I get TikTok back like a couple days ago. Worst decision of my life because now I don't know who the hell to pick for the men's. Everyone's saying, "Oh, pick Washington State. They're gonna go far." And then like the next TikTok is Drake over Washington State, easy upset. Like stuff like that where I just get too conflicted. And for the women's, I mean, I guess I've kept up with this side of the sport a little more, but I think it's going to be a fun tournament. I think there are going to be a decent amount of upsets. Even us, I could.
Yeah.
It's on the table, which I don't want, obviously. But I think it's also on the table that we get to the Final Four. So
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. It should be really fun.
Yeah, no, I think it's just funny because as unpredictable as March is, I feel like this year is the most unpredictable that we've seen recently, at least that I can remember, but for the two like opposite reasons, because the women's side is insanely good, and the men's team is, I don't know, just insanely unpredictable and kind of like, huh?
Right. Like I saw something about how the women's Final Four is sold like way more tickets.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Year.
I mean, last year, the women's national tournament was getting more viewers than the men's national tournament. Granted, that was because last year's men's tournament was featuring so many upsets and different teams in the Final Four.
2 4 seeds, a 5, and I mean,
and then one in UConn.
Right.
And UConn ended up winning, but yeah, I don't know. Just I don't know, a funky time in college basketball.
I think this could be a funky year for women's. If South Carolina gets knocked off, Texas is probably the weakest of the 1 seeds. And I feel like it could be sort of like last year if that gets to that point where I mean my Final Four prediction doesn't include a single 1 seed.
Yeah.
It's us, UConn, Notre Dame, NC State.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not sure if we have too much further to go into.
I guess you can mention Football Pro Day. That's happening as we're speaking.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. There's the Football Pro Day. There's obviously
no Xavier Weaver though.
Yeah.
Which is probably the only guy that would have a chance to get drafted if he. I think we have some UDFA candidates. I mean, it said there were 22 NFL teams at our Pro Day, so pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you also gotta wonder a little bit, like, I don't know how much of that is due to Coach Prime, but.
True.
But yeah, no, the Pro Day is going on. Yesterday was the first media availability for the spring game. I don't think anybody from us went to that, but
no, I know Trent wanted to go, or he's wanting to go soon. I know we have a couple people. I think Talis is at Pro Day right now.
Gotcha.
And I know Terrace works with the team, so he's there.
Yeah. So,
but it said, honestly, more than I thought are in the Pro Day. I think it says Noah Young, Tyja Alston, Smoke, Dominic, Javon Antonio, McClendon, Rod Ward, Juju Mitchell, and Leonard Payne. But no Weaver, just because of his shoulder and surgery. I think it's labrum or something. He tore it.
Yeah. but I don't know. Yeah, with the spring stuff. I mean, we heard some guys leave the program.
Demoy Kennedy left the program, which kind of sucks considering how thin we are at linebacker. Yeah. So I don't know. That was kind of tough. But I don't know. It seemed like people were high on Marion Miller, which was good. Oh yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Miller, I feel like is a practice legend, though. Last year it seemed like the case too, because I mean we saw all these reps with him, and it'll be really nice to see him get more involved. But that receiver room is so loaded. I'm ready for LeJontay Wester. I'm ready for Will Shepard. I mean that receiving room is going to be so insanely stacked that I don't even know who's going to start. Yeah, no, it'll definitely be a toss up, but I don't know. Yeah, we can definitely get into that later because I don't know. At least for me, my mind's on basketball. I get you. I don't have too much more to say. But yeah, I mean, to see the Pro Day happening is cool. Yeah. But my mind, like you, I mean, it's March. It's March. It's for sure March.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't know. We also need to make sure we have content down the stretch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the spring game will have plenty.
Yeah, the spring game will bring some stuff.
I've heard some rumors. I won't reveal them now about who would be. Be a concert for it.
But
yeah, I mean, it should be fun.
But yeah, and then we also have the club sports as far as the baseball team, which we cover, and
baseball. Not looking as great as last year.
But
still, I mean, they're still fun to watch.
Yeah, and
they score a billion runs every game.
And then
lacrosse.
The women's lacrosse. I mean, even though they lost their last game, coming in at 20th in most recent
ranked.
polls. So I mean, there's definitely stuff going on, stuff to be talked about outside of basketball. But yeah, no, as we keep saying, it's March. So I don't know. I think that's all we have.
Yeah.
So as always, I'm Oliver Hayes.
I'm Harrison Simeon.
And you heard it here first. Peace.